Hello everyone, Toon Ganondorf here and welcome to this multi-part video series called Top 10 Campaigns. In these videos I will be listing the top 10 campaigns by UK Robot Wars machines in their quest for the UK Championship title. How close a robot came to victory is a major factor, but I'll also be taking into account the quality of opponent, the robot's relative domination, the entertainment of the fights, the narrative behind the robot, and any surrounding circumstances. Make sure to let me know what your choices are at the end of the video. Number 10. VMAX. This orange wedge was a very late entrant into the Fourth Wars, but managed to pencil in a notable campaign in only 2 fights. VMAX was on the reserve list in the last heat of the series when Onslaught had to pull out at the very last second. VMAX went about its business in the melee and took down the seated Cerberus in a well-executed flip. Granted, the headless machine was hardly a massive scalp to take, but it was a fine achievement for a robot who almost didn't appear in the Robot Wars canon at all. Unfortunately for VMAX, its second opponent would be its last, forever. But VMAX was determined to carve a name for itself in the limited moment it got in the sun, and managed to show more aggression on HYPNO-DISC than almost any other robot in the series. Even in death, VMAX got to claim a spot on HYPNO-DISC's highlight reel, saving it from the more mundane legacy that most Series 4 one-timers can claim. Number 9. Bulldog Breed 2. A significant improvement from the last wars, Tony Summerfield's second Bulldog breed took significant cues from Chaos 2 in its design. Its campaign is benefited by arguably the best melee in the entirety of the Fourth Wars, where it contributed a number of attacks and arguably won outright. In round 2, Bulldog Breed 2 felled the 14th seed Bigger Brother, showing that its new flipper was enough to go on par with previous semi-finalists. This put Bulldog Breed through to the heat final as the presumed favourite, having taken down 2 future tournament winners while its opponent had only bested Hammer and Tong. Unfortunately for Bulldog Breed 2, its campaign was shortened when Stinger took the lead thanks to its enormous mace. This memorable defeat came earlier than the Summerfields would have liked, but it built a narrative on which future Bulldogs would build. Number 8. Panic Attack. The conversation about which Panic Attack was the best generally includes the Series 4 model towards the top. Many would argue that Series 4 was the last great campaign for Panic Attack, whose performances in Series 5 through 7 felt more and more perfunctory. Panic Attack swept through its heat, reminding us that it was a former champion, and that only Firestorm was truly capable of defeating it in battle. Its defeat of Sawpoint almost saw Kim Davis lifting a machine out of the arena. Its defeat of Smidsy saw the ascent of Panic Attack's Fork Pit combination, and its defeat of Spawn of Scupper was a creative and impressive way to exploit its foe's weaknesses and Panic Attack's own strengths. When it drew Stinger, Kim Davis looked set to repeat a grand final appearance for the first time, and many were starting to guess who would win between the Series 2 and 3 champions in the next round. But a startling display from Stinger quickly turned anticipation into doubt. The subsequent battle could only be separated by a single aggression point, with Stinger's bludgeoning mace prevailing over Panic Attack's controlled forks. The audience loudly booed the decision, showing just how popular Panic Attack's run had been, and the decision has been debated ever since. However, Panic Attack falling in such a close judge's decision is arguably a far better conclusion to this campaign than an instant KO against Chaos 2 would have been, because it suspends the Series 4 Panic Attack in a medium where it was always capable of more. Number 7. Wild Thing. Of all the Series 3 semi-finalists who returned to fight in Series 4, only a single one managed to do better than the previous year. Wild Thing's heat was nowhere near as strong as it was the previous year, but it ran through the competition like wildfire. Now safe from arena spikes and reigning champions, Wild Thing managed to trounce the Steel Avenger and Exterminator 2 to claim its position in the top 8. But such heights inevitably brings challenge, and Wild Thing drew HYPNO-DISC, a robot who had just obliterated its previous opponent. But Wild Thing had no fear against such an opponent, and despite taking nasty facial scars in the process, took HYPNO-DISC to a judge's decision, its fearsome wedge and driving holding up against a robot whose last 4 opponents had left the arena in bin bags. Series 4 was Wild Thing's only foray into the top 8, and just showed what it could do when it didn't have to draw the reigning champion early on. Number 6. Chaos 2. This list would be incomplete without the reigning and eventual champion. Chaos 2, completely unchanged from the previous war, now had robots chasing their success, whether replicating their design or adding streamex or invertibility to ensure they could come back from the attack. But it wasn't enough for the heat quality machines, who found themselves out of the arena or whipped around the arena like leaves in a gale. Steg 2 in the semi-finals had no answer at all, nor did PUSSYCAT in the title fight, who had seemed completely unstoppable up to that point. Chaos 2's Series 4 campaign is certainly admirable, but there is little room to doubt that it is the luckier and less dominant of its 2 championship runs. It had its share of scares, including an off-screen breakdown against Tornado in the top 8 and a nail-bitingly close fight with Stinger. It avoided Razor, HYPNO-DISC and Dominator 2, all of whom would probably have defeated it in battle, leaving others to face them down. Had Chaos 2 lost to one of those machines, instead of repeating its title success, its campaign would probably not even be on this list. But even with risk factor, there's little room to deny that Chaos 2 was one of the best in Series 4, and it still blew away almost everything that stood in its path. Number 5. Dominator 2. By Series 4, Robot Wars had become a show where failure to change almost always meant being left behind. Nearly every semi-finalist of Series 2 and 3 had a harsh wake-up call in Series 4, faced with new faces or robots who innovated better. Case in point, Dominator 2, who went from an unwieldy box to a sleek, steep wedge with the best axe in the entire show. Though Heat E had some veterans, Dominator 2 seemed destined for semi-final status the second it appeared on screen. Every robot took at least one step down when up against Dominator 2. Round 2 dropout Henry 2 fell 5 seconds into its first round. Heat finalist Shadow of Napalm couldn't exceed round 2, and despite the best efforts of Mike Franklin's seeded 101, Dominator 2 took the Heat final judge's decision unanimously. In the semi-finals, Dominator 2 pulled an incredibly tough draw in the grand finalist Firestorm 2, and eked out a win in a terrific fight that has a different winner every time you watch it. Finally undone by PUSSYCAT, Dominator 2 managed to go from second place in pinball to a top 8 finish in just a single year, and the fact that it KO'd Chaos 2 and Stinger that same year leaves you wondering if it might have gone even further. Number 4. HYPNO-DISC. Watching Series 4 in hindsight, it is hard to dispute that this was HYPNO-DISC's best chance at the UK title, and the producers wanted to give it the best chance they could. Champion heats had been seen before, most notably Razors in Series 3, but in Series 4 it was taken to all new levels thanks to the seeding system. HYPNO-DISC's Series 4 heat was one of the most obvious. Razorblade, the Predator and VMAX all left the Robot Wars arena in bin bags, and Razorblade's heroic attempts to even take part in the heat final were completely overshadowed by the audience's desire to see HYPNO-DISC rip more metal to shreds. It was the semi-finals, however, that HYPNO-DISC really kicked its campaign up a notch. In a battle that every Robot Wars fan has seen, the plucky Splinter was simply reduced to sawdust, HYPNO-DISC's teeth shredding the aluminium away as if it were no more than tissue paper. Wild Thing put up a terrific fight, but HYPNO-DISC's victory was not to be denied, and it only adds to the narrative that saw HYPNO-DISC on a collision course with Chaos 2 in the final. Until PUSSYCAT got involved. Much like Panic Attack, HYPNO-DISC's Series 4 campaign was cut short by an outcome no one could have predicted. Rather than diminish the campaign, however, it seals it in our memory as one of the strongest robots in the series, a run that might have gone very different, but for one remarkable moment. Number 3. Stinger. Long before Nuts 2 or Gabriel, there was Stinger, a wacky, wonderful thwackbot that just kept winning fights. Seeded 30, a seeding so low that it almost seemed like a gimmick, Stinger seemed to be living up to its silly reputation by flailing around in its melee. Even when it battered the fairly pedestrian Hammer and Tong into submission in second round, most eyes were on the winner of Bulldog Breed and Bigger Brother. However, the second encounter with Bulldog Breed quickly showed that while Stinger had an answer for everything its opponent could throw at it, Tony Summerfield's machine was vulnerable. In the semi-finals, once again Stinger drew the pedestrian opponent, and most fans predicted that Stinger's incredible run would end at its first encounter with a proper all-star. Despite conquering robots like Exterminator, Thing 2 and Spawn of Scudder, Panic Attack quickly found that Stinger was the worst possible machine for its snare and control tactic, and the following judge's decision went against it. With that controversial scalp under its belt, Stinger went into the grand final against the reigning champion, and the detractors said, okay, this time, it's over. And while they were right, they were close to being wrong, as Stinger put up an incredible performance, breaking Chaos 2's vulnerable back panel and tying with it on 3 of the 4 criteria. The Series 4 campaign is also remarkable for its isolation, with Stinger failing to escape the heats in Series 5 or 6. It just shows that some robots could go on to greatness if they had skill, luck, and timing. Number 2, Tornado. It is hard to imagine that if the producers had known what they were getting with Tornado, that they would have left it in the heat with one of their proposed cash cows, Gemini. Heat F of Series 4 was all about the debut of Team Mace's Clusterbot, and the rest of the heat was decidedly unremarkable. As the episode went on, you could hear the producers making justifications to themselves. Tornado blew away Caterkiller, that doesn't matter. Caterkiller was always going to lose, it didn't matter who did what. Tornado shunted Berserk 2 into next week. Yes, but did you see Gemini ootering the creature? But then the heat final came, and Tornado was on the aggressive from the very first second. Gemini ended up skewered on the arena side spike, and suddenly we were looking at a robot that was a proper threat to shake things up. In the semi-finals, the enormous flipper of Wheelie Big Cheese posed a serious threat, but Tornado came out ahead, proving that every robot had its weak point. It took the reigning champion Chaos 2 to finally bring Tornado to heel, and even then, the 2 off-screen scares almost put Tornado through. By the time Tornado sailed out of the arena, we knew that we were looking at a future champion and a robot who would change the sport forever. Number 1, Pussycat. Remember earlier when I said that Chaos 2 left others to face down Razor, Dominator 2 and HYPNO-DISC? I should have said left one robot to face them, because all 3 of those legendary machines were felled in one truly remarkable campaign. Only Carbide in Series 9 can potentially rival Pussycat in terms of the caliber of opponent overcome. Heat B was designed to be a showcase for Razor, and so the show put in a combination of boxy amateurs and novelty machines that would fit nicely within Razor's claw. Rounding out the 6 was the most crushable of all the Series 4 seeds, King B3. Then suddenly, Trident and Blade's big brother pulled out. King B3 was promoted into Heat A, and now Pussycat was the 19th seed. And it wasted no time showing that this was not going to be content with distant second place, setting Repteron on fire with its own petrol and carving up Robo Chicken for dinner. In the heat final, Pussycat got stuck into the malfunctioning Razor and caused the most damage that Ian Lewis's machine would ever receive. In the semi-finals, Pussycat chewed up Rising Stars, Thermidor 2 and Dominator 2, its blade causing damage even on the plasma nitride coated titanium. No one gave Pussycat a hope in the grand final, which looked set to be a Chaos 2 HYPNO-DISC reunion. But David Gribble proved everyone wrong with a piece of driving that defies belief even to this day. The only sullying note on Pussycat's Series 4 campaign is that it did eventually fall to Chaos 2 without putting on its best performance. But if you ask yourself, who had a better campaign than the robot who took out Prime, HYPNO-DISC and Razor in a single year, I challenge you to make a case for them. So what do you think are the most impressive campaigns of Series 4? Would you change the order? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time for the best campaigns of Series 5.